See you, Matt. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year, as that's the thing to say today. I think I'm going to try and keep this pretty short so that most of the time we spend today will be on questions. At HowGood, for any of you who don't know, we rate the sustainability of food products. So that means we look at the environmental and the social impact of foods. We've rated about 110,000 food products on 60 to 70 indicators. Each of those indicators can be made up of anywhere from 5 to 25 data points. And we're really focused on how do we start to support decision-making within a industry that hasn't had very much disruption, right? If you look at the grocery industry, where you have, there's more than 3 grocery stores in the U.S. that have larger revenues than Apple. That's just 3. There's, over 36,000 grocery stores in this country, and you start to say, okay, this $600 billion industry is still selling you your food predominantly the same way it sold you food 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and yet we have so much information, we've got so much interest in information. What do you start to do with that? The thing that we're probably the most proud of is when we can take this data that is now available and start to share it and start to influence consumers to vote with their dollars and to buy products that are more sustainable. So in 2014, we impacted 334 million sales. These are sales that shifted via loyalty card data, which is how we see this. Sales that shifted from one product to a more sustainable product. And this process is based on a very simple understanding of sourcing standards, processing practices, and company conduct. So what we do is we take as many either open source data sources. So if you look at the non-GMO project, if you look at Fair Trade Certified, if you look at a lot of the different organic seals, and you start to gather all that data, but then you also look at, you start partnering with people who are doing CSR reporting on the investment side. You start to buy their data. You start to pool all these different data sources together, and slowly over a 7-year process, we built up a data set that allowed us to accurately show where different ingredients were coming from. And we used a fairly new system of taking the map and mapping out not only where something comes from, but what the different impacts are for each different region. Obviously growing a banana in upstate New York is a lot harder than growing a banana in a lot of places in South America. There's a lot of people who say, oh, I want to buy local. And buying local is great, but knowing when you should buy local and when you should buy something that's imported, because you need a greenhouse in New York State to try and grow bananas, is important in terms of understanding the impacts. So what we've done is we've mapped out all those impacts. We've mapped out what a certification means, what a certification means in one country versus another country. The same thing with each ingredient, where it's grown, what are the laws. The same thing even just with tomatoes that are grown in, let's say, California versus Florida, right? What are the pesticide laws for a conventional tomato grown in California? What are they in Florida? Is one significantly better than the other? The answer is yes, buy California tomatoes. We partnered over 7 years with farmers, industry experts, scientists, academics to start to build this up. Everyone comes together. They debate an issue like palm oil. They sit down. We map out everything that's a known negative, a known positive, or an unquantified risk. And then we fit that into a food system that's quite complex. And it's all to answer a very simple question. When you go to the grocery store, this is what you get. You get 2 milks. You look at their packaging. You make a decision. A very small percentage of people maybe use an app, maybe they've done a little research, maybe they know one of the companies or they've gone to a farmer's market. But how do we start to take the type of data that we're using to make a lot of our other shopping purchases and start to influence the person in the grocery store? Now, the grocery store is interesting because the average person spends 15 seconds making a purchase. And they do that so many times and walking around the store that it still takes the average person 45 minutes to get out of the store. So if you say, hey, scan this with your app, and the average app to scan a product takes a minute, and you want them to scan all 8 different milks that are available to them, and then you tell them to do that for every product, but also make sure that you pick up your kid when he gets out of school, it's impossible, right? So we had to start to say, okay, we got this problem. We know people are interested in data. We know every study that comes out that looks at percentage of people that want to buy more sustainably, you average about an 85% of people will say they want to buy more sustainable product. That goes across party lines. Same thing with products that are sourced in an ethical manner. And when you ask, are people willing to pay more, you normally hit marks of around 70%. But when you see what's being sold predominantly in a shopping cart in a supermarket, that's not what we're hitting. So the question is, okay, are people lying on surveys, or is there a piece of the puzzle missing? Is there a need there that no one's addressed? So we took that really simple problem, right, and we started looking at all the different impacts. So these are, I'm going to run through a couple of milks here, just so you start to see what we're looking at HowGood. So the environmental record, the growing practices, animal husbandry, production type, production degree, production impact, social impact, the labor record, the labor policy, and the corporate governance. So it's everything from the environmental to the social side of things. It's the largest data set on food sustainability in the world now. This would be Horizon. Okay? This is organic milk that, based on our system, would show you that, yes, they are organic, but every other policy, aside from the bare minimums, they essentially skirt. And so you end up with a product that isn't as good as, let's say, Clover Organic. Another one that gets very good that's sold in New York, since Clover is more on the West Coast, would be Stonyfield. So Clover, Stonyfield, you start to see there's no significant deviations from best practices. You move on to a company like Trickling Springs, which is a local made milk here in New York. And you start to see that they're really leading the way. But there's no way for a consumer, first of all, to understand all these different data sets. And also to have all of that and to use all that information every time they go to the grocery store. So that was our problem. How do you start to take this accurate information, put it in front of a consumer and start to influence and support them voting with their dollars and start improving our food system with this knowledge? We came up with a really overly simple method, which was print a sustainability score next to the price tag. So essentially, when someone walks into a grocery store that's using our program, which is now being used in 25 states across the country, you'll see this product's rating is great for the environment, society, and the world for the top 6% of products in a grocery store, which seems incredibly simplistic when you compare it to the amount of data that we're looking at. But we're coming back to that 15-second problem. How do you start to support people when they won't take out their app? So we have an app. It scans the barcode. It does exactly what I said you won't do. But that's because it's a support method for this. So people who go in, they might use it at home on a few of their favorite products. They might see this and they want to understand the depths of the data. They want to build trust. They want to start to engage on that level. And so then you take this and you combine it with it and you have a very effective solution. The other interesting part is, okay, how do we know that this has actually had an impact? And I think the biggest way that you can see the impact is, okay, what happens to a grocery store that puts the ratings on their shelves? And when they partner with us, they put a sustainability score on every single product in the grocery store that achieves a positive rating. So we highlight all the best products, and anything that doesn't get a rating is below our standards. So we're basically saying, hey, these are the best products. It's a positive reinforcement policy. And a great rated product, okay, for your average grocery store over the last year ends up creating a monthly increase of about $20,000, which for them is about a 30% increase in sales. Or to put it simply, a great rated product has a 31% increase of sales, a very good product has a 7% increase of sales, and a 5% increase of sales for a good rating. which really shows you that once consumers actually have third-party data, they start to have something that shows them this data in a simplistic way, and they can go up to something like a kiosk that's at the front and scan the product and see why and kind of build their trust. The people are really interested in having more information at the point of purchase. And the more we can start to say, okay, well, people have wanted more information. When you go to Amazon, you can read all these reviews, you can read all this information. They want it for the general when you're going to a restaurant, so we know it's there for food. That's why Yelp's so popular. And how do you start to do that same sort of thing in a grocery store? And yeah, that's us. So I'm going to open it up to anyone who has any questions. And
hi, my name's Philippe. Thanks for a great presentation. I'm just wondering if you're getting any pushback from the big manufacturers who might not have the best grades. Thanks.
That would be surprising.
Yeah, no, we get pushback. We get what we want and what we don't want. We get the pushback that is, hey, we don't want you to rate our product. So we took a very different approach, right? In the past, kind of rating agencies, they try and sell themselves to a company to get rated, and so we rate them whether they want to be rated or not. And so, yeah, we get companies that say, in the good cases, they say, hey, how do we get a better rating? What can we do better? And in the bad cases, they say, you can't rate us. We don't want to be rated. Take our ratings off the shelves, or don't show it on your website. The reality is they don't really have any sway over us. Some people thought they'd have more sway over the grocers, but the model got proved out with nutritional ratings being printed on shelves, where they ended up losing. And so we don't get that much pushback. And if you get bullied too much, it's a great PR story. So I think they're aware of that. Yeah. Oh.
Hold on.
Hi, my name is Greg. I'm an independent contractor on data work. I'm curious what dimensions and categories of things that you're tracking have been changing the most in this time period. Like, where have companies been improving, and where have companies been decreasing, maybe?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think the most obvious time that there's a massive decrease, I don't know on, there's a few areas where, palm oil has been started to be put into tons of products. The next one that's going to be coming is coconut oils, because there's so much coconut water being made that there's a byproduct. So those are areas where they're being put into products. The palm oil is a really known negative. It has really terrible impacts in terms of the local economies where it's grown. It's clear cutting forests to grow it, and that's typically jungle down in Brazil. And so that's a big issue. There's a known issue when a kind of small environmental leader company gets bought. There's typically about a 6-month mark where suddenly practices start to change. So that's a really interesting time. If there's a company that you like to buy from and it gets bought by a company, you can typically start to see between the 6 and 8 month mark whether or not they're going to kind of hold true and run independent, or whether they're going to be brought into a larger umbrella style practices where they might shift their sourcing practices and things like that.
I'm looking for a lady to ask a question. Not that I have anything against a bunch of dudes, but... Oh, there you go, one.
What's the incentive for the grocery stores to use your service? It seems like they would not really be into this.
Sure. Okay, so, well, first of all, we made it a positive-only rating system, right? And that's definitely for their benefit. So we're calling out to the grocers, to the shoppers in the store, look at all the different sustainable products, which for your average conventional store will be about their top 40% of products will get a good or above. So we do good, very good, or great. So the top 40% of products will end up with some sort of a rating. And it shifts sales towards those more sustainable products. On average, those more sustainable products come with a higher price tag because it's the true cost of food. So instead of paying down the road with either having to deal with harsh pesticides or things like that in our local communities, we're paying up front now and getting less pesticides on our food. You know, there's a funny thing when I walked in, you know, they've got a lot of great food here. They've got organic bananas and all these different things, but one of the things that was conventional grown was the apples that they offer. And there's a sign that says, please wash apples before consuming. What the average person doesn't know is that if you take an apple and you measure the amount of pesticides residue on it, and then you wash it in your sink for 2 minutes, because we all wash them for 2 minutes, right? So you wash it for 2 minutes, 98% of that residue is still sitting right there on that apple. You get off 2%. And so there's this enormous amount of kind of ways where you can, when you start to put the information in front of people, they're willing to spend a little bit more to get a better product. So for the grocery stores, they've averaged between a 3 and an 8% increase in the average basket size. So when someone leaves their store, they're seeing a markedly larger basket, as well as the fact that they get to be like, look how sustainable we are. We're showing you the best products in our store. You know, come and get them.
All right, that's a lot more questions, but unfortunately that's all the time we have. You're going to be around after this,
yeah.
Right? Okay. You had like a bunch of people interested in connecting, so thank you.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.